if you look at birds, they can do these beautiful, complex dances in the skies. And there's many features that are useful for engineering. They can scale to huge numbers. If a bird falls, the whole system doesn't crash, so they're robust. And they can do more than the sum of their parts. Now, there's many examples of self-organization in nature, whether it's ants creating trails to your picnic table, bees making decisions about their next nest site, or indeed our ability to grow fully functioning human shapes just from a couple cells. Now, the puzzle as swarm engineers that we need to figure out is how are we going to engineer the individual agents because they just use local rules to do this swarming so that you get the desired swarm behavior. And so one method that we often use is bioinspiration. And if you take inspiration from the systems I showed you before, you could deploy swarms of flying robots that do flocking-like behaviors. You'll see their GPS trajectories, and they create these beautiful circles in the sky. You could do trail formation, inspired from how ants create their trails. And this is really based on random motion and simple local interactions. They can also avoid obstacles and find the nearest objects, so features for free. And you can do decision making. Here the robots are choosing between blue and red. Blue is the better decision, and so you'd expect these robots, which are coin-sized, in case you're wondering what these are, they're kilobots, to come to the blue decision. And we can also work with biologists who study embryogenesis to look at how we would grow shapes in a fully self-organized manner without any plan. So here these robots are exchanging virtual morphogens. They're doing patterning based on a rule set from Alan Turing, and they grow these limb structures that can regrow if we chop off and self-heal. But sometimes we don't have the rules from biology, and we need to learn them on the go. And so this is a teraflop swarm, learning just using the processing power they have on board how to swarm to push this frisbee to one side of the environment. Those swarms were in small numbers, all the way to the hundreds, thousands, which you might think is big, but actually in the world of nanomedicine, tiny particles work in the 10 to the power 13 to deliver drugs to tumors. And in that word, we need to figure out how to design the particle. You might change its size, you might change its stickiness, and that is going to change what the swarm does as a collective. For example, if you make a sticky particle, that sticky particle might only stick to the first cancer cell it encounters and won't go deep into the tumor tissue. And indeed, we're developing more and more realistic simulations so that we can track where these particles would go and microfluidics to visualize what that would look like under a microscope. This is part of a big European project that we're part of, which is to automatically design using computational tools, nanoparticles, produce them, test them in reality, and then send them to our clinical collaborators to try out. And it's also part of a Cancer Research UK grant that we have now to design new nanoparticles to detect biomarkers in blood, to detect hopefully brain tumors a little bit earlier on. So as we're designing some of these nanotechnologies, we realize we need a better playground to control swarms. So this is the dome that we've built. You can basically here project light patterns around microparticles, pretend that they're communicating. This is paramecium, and we can put light tracks around them, and so we're playing with this, and we're pushing swarms to the real world. So 2 new grants. This is an HFSP grant to design swarms of robots to study basking sharks, and a new one where we'll be developing swarms of 100 robots to interact with crowds such as the one here. I think we're at the stage where we need to think differently about swarms. So if you imagine a field, why don't we make swarms of 100 million robot seeds that are biodegradable that plant themselves? And in this push to the real world, we're actually asking people what they want. So we've asked firefighters, people in logistics, people who do inspection, what they want swarms to do for them. And we're learning a lot in terms of they're open to swarms, but they need these swarms to work well, and they need to understand how to interact with them. So this is Marihan's work, trying to help us understand how we interact with swarms. So she's using this as a canvas, painting a night sky on it and little stars, and you can see the sunset that rises after this. But here we can interact with the swarm and read out something from the swarm that's human understandable. In our efforts to make swarms for people, we also have an escape room, and as part of this escape room, they've told us what they want to see, including massages. I don't know what people think of that application. And 2 nonprofits that I run for science communication in robotics and AI, so check them out.